Awesome. Oh, hang on. Of course, I've got a couple of things that I'm just working through over here. Sorry. I said I was ready and now I feel like I'm not, but I'm ready. Um, it's always fun whenever I'm doing presentations with Zoom because I get so many windows open and it's lots of joy for me over here. But I need it. I need all these windows.
The important thing is it brings you joy.
It does. So welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you here to talk about the summer release. I'm Jen Bowen, for those of you who don't know me. I co-lead the Madison admin group with Brian, and then we also do have Squire from the Milwaukee group on, as well as our newest leadership team member, Rachel. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi.
You can, of course, connect with any of us. I threw your Twitter handle up there. But you can connect with any of us on social. You can also connect with us on our user group platform, Trailblazer Community Group platform. Shoot us an email. We're around. You can find us pretty much anywhere. Our mission for these meetings is to learn together, right? We've been remote for quite a while now. But we still see lots of friendly faces on the call. Feel free to share your camera if you'd like to. But really, it's about education. We succeed together by sharing information, stories, lessons learned, learnings that we've had over the course of our experiences. So we're just glad that you're here and able to participate. We always ask for speakers. I feel like we never get them, but I like throwing it out there that it's not just about me, Brian, Squire, and Rachel talking and presenting to you. We know that you have a lot of experiences yourselves, so please reach out if you would like to talk about them with the group. We don't bite, I promise. Lots of friends out there. I like to mention the MVP office hours. Squire, we haven't talked about those in a little bit. Can you remind me when are MVP office hours and what are they?
Yeah, really quick. We meet first and third Friday of every month. It's an open forum. Log in, listen. We use the success group to try to vet some questions, but you can bring them real time to the session, and we just kind of group think. A lot of really smart people in the room. And that's in everybody. It's not just MVPs for answering questions. It's all about sharing, comparing notes, and it's really like an extension of what we do in this group. And it's just open dialogue on whatever we can do. We would normally have one, in fact, this Friday. However, we canceled so we could participate in Admin Live. But normally, first and third, all the recordings are on YouTube, and you can sign up by going to the MVP Office Hours Success Group and clicking the link, or it's bit.ly/MVPOH.
Wow. Thank you. We have that linked on here as well as in our community group too. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Other upcoming events that I just want to mention is Midwest Dreamin', which is in August. Alongside with that, the Witness Success community-led group is happening that same weekend. It's all up in the Twin Cities. So if it's something that you are interested in, I would definitely check those things out. There's a community calendar out there as well for other community events. A lot of people are still remote, so it gives you the opportunity to join other sessions like this one. And then Salesforce events too. Connections is coming in June in Chicago. And then I wanted to, it's not too early to give a plug for Dreamforce. I have seen that calls for speakers is open for Dreamforce. So, if you're into that, you can definitely check out and submit your topics to discuss and hopefully get picked for admin or developer track, whatever you're interested in there. I suspect that Dreamforce registration is probably going to be opening up, maybe in June. So just to let you know, who's got a session at Midwest Dreamin'?
That's me, Miss Jen.
You're presenting?
I am.
Oh my goodness. And what's your topic?
process design documentation, building out the process with boxes and arrows and pretty colors.
I hope that is the description of your topic. I will definitely check that out. See if I can get to that one. Anything else? I just want to open up the floor for anyone that has any other things that they would like to celebrate. Any new job opportunities, certifications, anything else that's top of mind for you.
I've got something.
Great. Hey, Nathan.
So finally, after about 2 years, finished replacing a 15-year-old ERP system with accounting seed, and then building a job ticketing system using flows in Salesforce.
Hot dog.
So,
good job.
Finally got us over the finish line back on April 1st, and things have actually been going well and functional so far. So yeah, it's actually working. And
what ERP system was it?
It was called
Ascent?
Logic. It's an old print. It's a print ERP system, EFI Logic, and the accounting system and the job ticketing system were kind of linked at the hip. So it was very interesting to try to separate the two enough to then be able to actually launch stuff. So our accounting team has been having an interesting time this first quarter, but otherwise for everybody else, it's working pretty well.
Awesome.
That is super impressive. And
so yeah,
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, lots of flows, lots of trying to figure out how to get things to go under the 101 limit, SQL limit a lot. So it's been interesting. So, yeah.
Anyone else want to share?
Women in Tech Milwaukee meeting is May 25th at 5 p.m. Topic is going to be MFA, enhanced domains, and flow migration, since that's sort of a hot topic or grouping of hot topics. But then, of course, anything else. So I'll put the link in chat.
Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, today our topic for discussion really is the summer release. One thing that I always like to do is share with you a couple of resources, one of which is the main resource that I think a lot of people gravitate towards, which is the Release Readiness Trailblazers on the Trailblazer community. I want to point out that in their group information, they have all kinds of resources for releases, past releases and current. So things like overview decks. They have this other thing called a feature matrix, which is actually, if you're an Excel person, they take all of their release notes and put them into Excel, which is actually pretty neat because it can help you determine what might affect your org a little bit quicker. Instead of, downloading the 600 and whatever pages of release notes or going through them that way. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. The other thing I want to mention is the Release Readiness Live is starting on the 19th. I think that's when the admin one is. And I would definitely...
We're both on Friday the 19th, yes.
Okay, thanks. I know Square's always on those because I hear shout outs to him almost every time.
It's my favorite hour of the quarter is that hour of time, because it's just, if you don't attend, it's just, there's so much positive energy and like positive intent from the group that puts that together that it's really hard not to be excited about that hour, in my opinion. Developers the same way. Developer Live is awesome. So
yeah, your second favorite hour, because this one's your first, right? Like,
yeah, sorry, I have to reprioritize.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, we've been ahead of them with our releases this last like 2 times. So, which is, not nerve-wracking for me at all, trying to come up with scenarios to talk to you all about. But definitely check it out if you can. And if you can do it live, even better. They love connecting with social, and maybe you get a shout out like Square does.
Really quick, I love to call out Jen on the feature matrix. For a long time, we leveraged that grid to build like an action plan for new releases. So you can turn it into cases or a custom object or even just stories in Trello or something to just be able to go through and say, we reviewed it. Do we have to do something about it? Do we have to enable something or turn something off? It's a really great, like more of a checklist than it is a library. I really like the matrix a lot.
I feel like they used to have it and then it went away and then it came back again. I don't know if that's true or if I just wasn't paying attention.
Maybe a little both.
Okay. So I'm excited because I get to talk about all things flow. I picked this topic for, amongst my peers here on something to cover for this release. There is a lot happening within flow and a lot of kind of more technical things. So I'm excited to kind of go through some of that with you all today. So first, I have just some mentions that I want to talk about. And then we're going to get into a couple more demo-y type things. So first of all, and all of these are hyperlinks, we're going to make sure the slide and everything's out there for you. We'll post it on the Trailblazer community. I'm not sure if anybody is using Security Center. I know it's a paid for product, but I just wanted to shout out that hey, if you're using this, they are now having flows utilize these objects, which wasn't available before. So if you're a Flow Nomadic and you're using the Security Center, that is definitely something I wanted to call out for you. The next one on here is choice sets and only being available in certain components. So just to take this one a step further is previously you could reference choice sets from like several different unsupported areas like in conditions or maybe some filters, and it could actually generate an error for you in Flow where it seems like it works, but then it doesn't really because it was unsupported. So these unsupported options are actually been removed. So you can no longer select from them, which is great because it's not going to look like you can do it and then you get hit with an error and you're wondering why. So they're not supported. However, if you happen to be using them and things seem to be working okay, and you're referencing these kind of unsupported areas in your flow, it's still going to work. It's just that it's no longer available for people to select from going forward. So check out the release notes on that if that's something that seems interesting to you or something you want to learn a little more on. Standard flows are now available in the Flow Trigger Explorer. So a standard flow is something that's basically shipped from Salesforce and anything that contains a trigger will now appear in like your account Flow Trigger Explorer if you were looking at that. You can see them in there. You can't rearrange the order of them. You can order other flows, your custom flows around them. But it's really nice to be able to see those in relation to other flows that you might have on your specific object that maybe you're customizing. So now you can kind of see them all in one place and understand how they're interacting with each other when they fire. If you do have questions about this too, please feel free to post in the chat. Also, I know that Brian's monitoring that as well as probably Square, or feel free to interrupt as well. There are steps in place for retirement of Process Builder. With the Summer 23 release, the process creation is not going to be available any longer. You will no longer be able to hit that new button and create a new Process Builder. You can still activate ones that are currently built. You can deactivate, you can edit existing, you just won't be able to build net new because everything is moving to Flow. Speaking of which, there is more meat to the migration tool with Flow. It's continuing to be improved. So one of the things that they think that they added was the ability to move a process builder that had scheduled actions, and those scheduled actions become scheduled paths within Flow. So something to check out if you're still learning Flow and you want to use that migration tool. However, it's still my recommendation to always review your processes before just migrating them to determine what your best options are, if you still need them, if they need to be revamped, those sort of things. We have a lot of processes still in our org. We're looking at them slowly. I'm hoping to migrate them slowly over, but we are taking them kind of object by object and trying to determine the best rebuild solution. So I'm going to pause there and just see if there are any questions thus far.
Just Nathan's comment about, wow, I have a lot to migrate.
We all do.
It'll be good to clean things up.
Here's your excuse. Talk to leadership too. I mean, that's the big thing, is trying to get buy-in. We always have, new ERP systems we're retiring or something like that happening. So make sure that you have the support from your leadership that, hey, this is something that needs attention and you need time to be able to actually complete the work.
I think it's also great to, sorry, Square. It's also great to be able to reassess old automation that was put in place a long time ago and see if it's even needed anymore. We've been doing that.
Yeah, you beat me to it, Anna. I mean, I think too many people think about, I just have to convert it, but not think about it as an opportunity to refactor and reevaluate and improve or sunset. I mean, take it like a project, use some sort of ADKAR principles to make sure that you've got a definition about why it's important, not just because we have to, and get your buy-in. So it's a good project to just show value from the admin desk for once, because sometimes I'm sure myself included, you feel like you're just doing what they ask you to do versus being creative, being proactive, being that valued resource. So yeah.
Or migrating things over that you found out were broken. Yeah. And now you're migrating and fixing at the same time.
If it was broken, does anyone even need it? I mean,
I need to figure that part out. In the meantime, I'm fixing it, and then I'm going to figure out if it was actually supposed to have been working. If it's not, then I will get rid of it.
Interesting. All right. So moving on, and this is where I am going to be doing lots and lots of demoing. I'm going to kind of book through this slide a little bit, and then we will get into a live demo. The first two bullet points I am going to get into a little bit deeper, but we can now do HTTP callouts. And I'm really excited about that. I got to play with it a little bit finally and try to understand what the heck it does. So we'll talk more there. The second or the third bullet really is building screens with reactive components. So this is kind of related to the fourth bullet, which is also using formulas with real-time updates within the same screen as well. So we're actually getting to the ability to build screens that feel like a single page app and kind of reducing the number of screens in which users have to actually click through, making them more, building them more with reactive components. So just to note, I mean, a lot of this stuff is still in beta, and with beta comes, well, limitations, right? So I know one of the limitations is display text elements aren't supportive currently with reactive components or reactive screen, but you can use Lightning Web Components for that type of a situation if you have developer friends to help you achieve that. So just might want to take a look at the release notes in terms of reactive, what's supported, it's in beta, so use at your own risk. I also did mention in here that there is an opt-in underneath the process automation settings. So we will definitely want to make sure that that is enabled before you try playing with this feature in your sandbox, of course. sending email actions continue to be improved. So you can now send email actions with Lightning email templates, which is super exciting. And moreover, you can actually log your emails that are sent with automation to specific activity, to specific record activity timelines. So this is nice because it provides your users a little bit of an easier traceability and history of automated emails that have been sent. But be mindful because this can impact just the general email limits that are put in place by Salesforce. So if you start logging all of the emails sent if you're doing lots of automation with email sends, it could impact that. So that is something to be mindful of for sure. I used to do this just by creating, customized tasks to automatically log emails being sent in the activity timeline. So it's really nice. It's a lighter lift for us admins to not have to have a workaround. And this feature coming out is pretty exciting. Data table, also a newer feature to Flow. The standard data table is now giving us the ability to search within the table itself. So if you're doing a table call and you're getting a lot of results, really nice for users to be able to search that. So we'll see that in a demo form today. And then the other thing I want to mention with that is they've improved performance, but they've improved performance by limiting the number of records that are displayed in the data table. So 1,500 records is all you get, folks. So that's something to keep in mind. I hope
that screams to me. Remember how everybody was so upset about the dynamic related lists and how you could only see a short list, and I was like, yeah, you don't want 8 million records to show up on that thing. Write a better layout. So that I agree with you there.
Yeah. And then finally, something we saw with Spring that I demoed was something called a choice lookup in Flow, just another way of doing choices. So we'll take a look at that again today, I think.
Jen, one more thing. I'm sorry if you said it. Isn't there something as well about the 1,500 that it actually shows you how many could have come back, but only displays the 15, right?
Yeah, you're right. We won't see that in the demo because I don't have 1,500 records that I'm calling. But yeah, it'll say showing just like in a report, right? Like when you run a report, it only shows 2,000 and it'll say on the top, displaying 2,000 of, 5,000 records. This is the same thing, displaying 1,500 of 5,000 records or whatever the actual result is. I don't know how they're choosing which 1,500 to give you.
Fortunately, I think you can choose it yourself though, right? You could sort.
Yeah, you can do the sorting.
Collection, yeah, and then the 1,500, but.
Yeah, good point. So if you're sorting by name or something like that, or alphabetized, and I suppose you get the top. All right. So this next topic, HTTP callouts. What? This is developer speak. So I wanted to just take a moment and level set to make sure that kind of everybody understands exactly what this is and the kind of power that they are providing to us with declarative Flow solution rather than a heavy Apex solution. So first, I just want to say that previously in the Spring release, we got the get method, but with Summer, that is becoming GA, and now we also have a post method, but that part is in beta. So now we can do both. We can do the gets and we can do the post methods right within Flow. No Apex needed. Like I said, this is developer speak, so I'm breaking it down a little bit here for our admins. So, and this is new to me. Like a lot of this I had to learn over the weekend to be able to speak to it a little bit better. But when you make a GET request, basically what you're doing is you're providing parameters within the URL for the resource you want to retrieve. And then it's going to send back that data request in the many different formats it could be. For example, I wanted to just include that when you do like a Google search, right? Or if you actually search in Google, like if you put this in, it'll actually work, right? You want to search for cats. In the URL, it'll say that it's querying, well, cats, and you're going to get your response all in your Google search engine. Or another example would be a Salesforce URL. So you can actually hack the URL, if you will, with the ID 18 of a specific record, and it will return that record to you. So that is the idea of kind of a GET callout. So again, parameters right within the URL itself. Now, a post is a little bit different. A post is actually a request where you're going to include the data within the body of the request. So instead of just putting it in the URL, you're passing in information to your post method in order to actually, edit maybe a external service or something like that. So let's say you have an ERP system and you want to make sure that that is being updated with data that is being entered into Salesforce. So you can use a post method to take the data out of Salesforce and maybe create an invoice record within your ERP system, or post, whatever it is that you would need, or create records within that system itself. So another example of this would be something like submitting a form on a website to maybe register for an event or something like that. Those will include all the data that you input on your form and put that into the system for the event registration, and then probably provide you back with registration link and other information. So these concepts really shouldn't be that foreign to you if you are using Flow. I kind of was thinking about that and reflecting to say, well, we use a GET element to query Flow and retrieve back data. So that's kind of like a HTTP call out for GET, except for you're just in platform instead of going outside of the platform, right? Same thing with a create records. That's kind of like a post. You are passing data back into the Salesforce system to create a record for you, an opportunity or whatever. Kind of the same concept. It's just that the HTTP callout is taking these actions outside of the Salesforce platform into a different one. So that's my breakdown. I don't know how I did, you guys, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understood it.
That's excellent explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, John. All right. So we're going to demo this today with our host because that's the new thing. But I wanted to first just take a minute to tell you that there's some quick steps here for you. And then also a shout out to a new YouTube channel that I subscribed to and even rang the little bell. Like and subscribe. Technical Potpourri. I did not come up with this all on my own. This is all new concepts for me as a declarative admin. So I watched his videos and followed along. I would definitely check him out and probably encourage you, if it's something you're interested in, to follow his channel as well. He comes out with videos all the time. And like I said, I followed along with his tutorial on this particular new feature, and I was able to set up everything I needed in order to do this demo today. So really great resource. All right, so with that, we are going to stop sharing my Salesforce or my slides and start sharing my instance. So here I am. Hopefully I'm still logged in. Looks like I am. Here I am logged into Salesforce on the home page, and I'm going to go through some of the quick steps. Now, I have already set this up, spoiler alert, and tested it, made sure everything was working. before I actually did this demo today. We're going to walk through the setup part of it, and then we'll kind of utilize what I've already created just to speed some things up. So there is another aspect of this that I had to do. And again, I got this from my new friend. He doesn't even know, I had to set up what's called a postman in order for me to play with an API. And this actually came from this really cool website that gives me an API to actually play with, so RESTful API. From here, I had a post request and a response already kind of built out for me. And then what I did was I took this information and I created a postman for me to actually play with as kind of an open API source. So again, all new concepts to me, but it was actually really simple to do, just following along a tutorial. So with understanding that side of it, there's a couple of steps that we need to take inside of Salesforce in order to set this up. So let me just make sure. So from setup, the first thing we are going to have to do is set up a named credential. So that's going to be step one for us to be able to do an HTTP call out. And I already have one set up here, but it's really easy to set up. You just click new, you give it a label, and then you pass in your URL that you are going to be calling with. And I got that again from that REST API website for me. And then you would create a actual external credential itself and save the record. So all in all, my label and everything's here. You can see I have my test post call named credential. This is the URL that I am using. And then I created a external credential as well. So let's take a look at that. So excuse me, here's the external credential right here. This is actually step one. I'm sorry, I'm going out of order already, but you wouldn't know unless I told you. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm setting up a named credential here. Let me just hit edit. I wonder if it's nothing. It's basically a label, and that's it. Once I have this named credential set up, I had to create a permission set. So I created a permission set for myself. I'm just going to go into a permission set. I created a new one, and we just named it the named credential test, real fancy. And within your permission set, there is this external credential principal access. And what we're doing here is we added my external credential that I created in my named credentials. And then, of course, after I added that to my permission set, I assigned the permission set just to myself. So created our named credential, our external credential, and then assigned it in my permission set. Then I went back into the named credential again, kind of a little bit of back and forth. And this is where I actually created the named credential with the URL that I want to actually interact with in my post. So that was the setup of it, which was pretty simple. Then we got to go in and create my flow. So let's take a look at flow. So I already have this working, but I am going to walk through actually setting up the flow itself. Let's do this first. Totally outside of my script, but I'm going to go into the flow that I already have built. I want to show you what it is actually doing, and then we're going to take a step back and like build out what I built. I think that that'll give you a better idea. So from here, I'm going to go into just debug mode. So then that way we can see everything that's happening within the flow itself. So I'm going to run this, and I have a screen flow. And within this screen flow, I'm asking the end users for some data. So my scenario is that I have a storefront, and I have inventory that I need to enter in, maybe some new MacBooks that we get in for my store. And I want to make sure that this information is not only available in the store, but also if I had a like e-commerce site or something like that, and I want to get these new MacBooks out on my e-commerce site, I can do a post to post out to an external e-commerce system, as well as, you know, log that inventory within my Salesforce instance as well. So I created a screen for that. So within here, if we did just a MacBook, what year it was, the CPU, you know, model, I have no idea what these are called these days. I think they're like M2 Max or something like that. My disk space and my price. That was not right, but whatever. And let's say I was listing that at $2,000. I'm going to click next, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And that's it. Like, everything was built in my flow. So let's just take a look at the debug. So I've got my screen, I got all my inputs for my screen, and then I had an assignment built. So it's taking all of my inputs and it's, well, assigning to my HTTP callout body. So you can see my name, what I input for my name, and my all my information here. And then this is the actual post call itself. So it's calling my external service, external post call that we set up previously, and it is grabbing all of the data from my inputs from my screen. So you can see that I've got my name, my MacBook Pro name here, my year, my, you know, price, and so on and so forth. And then we get outputs. And the output is giving me back all of the data that went into my input, the name, the size, the price, all that kind of stuff. And we get something else. We get this lovely little ID. So what I can show you is that this called out to my open API. And now I'm basically going to be, I didn't actually build this into my flow. I could have built in a get, but I'm taking that ID and I'm putting it in a URL parameter here. And I know it's like itty bitty and it's not very exciting because it's like just text, but you can see that if I now say, hey, to my API, give me back this ID that entered, you can see that everything was actually posted and it's in that external system with my MacBook Pro, the year, the model, and so on and so forth. So it worked. It actually took my input from my input screens and updated my external system. So I made that look really simple, super easy. There is more to it than just that. It isn't just all confetti over here. So let's go back into Flow. And this time I have a new flow set up here. Let me just see where I'm at with my version. I think it's only one version. Yeah. So within this flow, I don't have a lot happening here. I have my screen. And this is pretty simple. We just want to make sure that all of our data inputs are available to us. Let me see. I feel like I'm missing one in here, so we might have to create another one. I think that I am. I think that I need
Listing price.
Oh, my price. Yeah, thanks, John. So I did price as a number field. So I'm going to go ahead and put in price. Yeah, and I always do input price as my API name. That's just a standard for me, and my 2 decimals, and that's it. So I've got all my information that I want to gather within my screen. Now, this doesn't seem very intuitive, but the first thing that I actually need to do is I need to create my HTTP callout And then I have to do my assignment. And the reason is because I want to have my variable that is going to hold all of my data first, and then I can do my assignment. So I'm going to add an element. By the way, we are seeing something else in the demo here, which is, I don't know if you noticed or not, but icon colors and also space between the icons is now consolidated so you can fit more on your screen, which is very nice. I might even
pop-up hover, right? They got rid of the pluses and now I've got the little bullets. That's the other one that is
I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
oh, because I'm not actually, I don't actually have, I need to see that right now. So
I mean, yeah, if you just are on that screen, it's got it's like consolidating because they're not the big pluses. They're just the little buttons. As you go to it, it blows up and says, oh, you want to do something. It's fluffy.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice. Thanks, Square. Yeah. That's nice. So I'm going to do an action. Maybe I'll actually start using auto layout from now on. I don't usually. So this is also new to me. And we're going to create this HTTP callout. I cannot tell you how many times I've said that over the last few days. And it's beta. So that is something to keep in mind. It's funny because before it always said beta, and I feel like it doesn't say beta anymore, which is very strange. So we're doing our new HTTP callout.
I think it's get is not beta, but the post is beta, so they took it off.
There you go. And then we're going to pull in our named credential that we created earlier. So I already had that one created. And if you notice when I do that, it also is giving me that URL. That's my API or that I'm calling basically to. So I'm going to click next. And then we're going to create our invocable action itself. So here, I'm just going to give it a label. And here's where it says beta, my post, versus a get not being in beta anymore. And then as you can see, I have my URL path here. And I actually need to add something to it. So there is something called objects. If I look at my configuration within my API resource, I have to have that objects in there in order for this to be successful. I don't have any parameter keys to add. I'm not doing that, but this is where it gets a little bit tricky and it's also kind of cool. So this, if you were working with it, this is where I feel like a developer might be needed or might be necessary because I don't write code. And what it's asking for is it's asking for a sample request and it's asking for a sample response. So if I click in new, what's really cool about this, and I'm bopping over to my resource and I'm grabbing the example that they have for me. This is my request. This is my response. So as I do that and I paste it in here, I hit review. It's telling me what my data structure is. So year is an integer, or if you think of that as a number, right? Price, CPU model is a string, hard disk size is a string, name is a string. If you noticed in my screen, I had all the same data structures for each one of those fields that I was entering. So really cool that it just like told me what I needed and I didn't need to know what I needed. I'm going to do the same thing for my response. And again, I am taking a copy of this. I'm going to slap it in here. So I don't know exactly, like if you didn't have a developer, or if you weren't working with someone who didn't understand this and didn't have these examples, I don't know if you could do this. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that, but again.
Yeah, I mean, usually you're connecting to an existing API. A good API has documentation that gives you sample requests and responses because you usually have to mock these up when you're building them anyway. So, you know, like think about it like this. That API is sitting over in
your e-commerce site, right?
Sure, right. And so we don't know anything about their system. So we can't just throw gets and posts there and hope it works. So a good API tells you it's supposed to look like this and you're supposed to get this back. And that's what that's where that's coming from.
Thank you, Squire. I've never done this before, so that is super useful.
I'm so excited about this thing. Like I'm jumping up and down because as I've said a million times over, like admins are just architects waiting to happen. And this is a great opportunity to think like an architect about, it's not just clicking anymore. Now we're doing stuff that is powerful and
very impactful to
yes.
outside systems that you can't just go. Yeah, I hear you.
How many times have you said, I got to get a developer, right? That's painful and infuriating and not empowering. And as an admin now, with some documentation and a well-written documented API, you can do things for yourself that really empower you. It's awesome.
We're almost done with the setup. I did hit an error because I need a unique external service name because I'm already using it in a flow. So, I thought that it would be here. I should be able to move forward. It's my label, but hold on one second, guys.
Do you need the second slash in objects, or is it just supposed to be objects?
I think that I need it. Hold on, let me double check. I have a cheat sheet going on the side here. No, I need it.
Just because I see the URL already has the trailing.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if you needed it again.
I think that I do, but it's not allowing me to save it because of, what are we doing? Add a unique external service name. Oh, I think it's on this screen because this is where I'm naming my external service. Sorry, I needed something there. So let me redo that. Now I should be able to save it. Oh, come on. Really? So I had this happen to me before.
Get real creative with it.
There we go. Okay, I was using a V2 somewhere already because let me tell you how many times I did this over the weekend. Okay, and I still hit that error. Now we're good. All right, so now we are doing our actual action itself, right? So this would be like an external post call action. I'm just going to name it. And then from here, this is where we need to input our values and from the body of our post. So with that, I have to create a new resource. And this is going to be a variable. And I can give this a name. I'm just going to call it input body. And then my data type, this is the important bit, it needs to be Apex defined. Because again, we're getting that all through our code that we didn't actually have to write. And then what is the Apex class that you need to call? So mine is going to be the post. It's the external service name. So my post 3, but I need, this one in body. That's the ticket. We're done. And we're done. So that is the actual setup of the HTTP action, post action. So now that we have that and we have our variable, now I can go back and actually create my assignment. And within my assignment, then I'm just going to do assign input body data. So from here in my variable, I can see my input body, my Apex defined variable. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to do name equals, and then we're getting this from my screen, right? So we're going to do input name. And then from my Apex defined variable, I'm going to do my data. This is where I have things like price. And I'm going to put in my input price from my screen component and so on and so forth. That's it. That's the setup. That will just work. Okay, so this one actually might not work because I didn't put in all my assignments, but I'm saving some of my hard work. So let me go back to I'm just going to hit save because we want that to save. And then I'm going to go back to my other flow version just to round it out exactly what we did, start to finish, with it working in my other flow that we ran before. So here's my actual working flow with all of my assignment and screen. So just to recap, we have created named credentials, we did permission sets, we did an external credential authentication, we have our flow, which has our product our screen for our input. We have our assignment that we created for all of those inputs. And then we have that external post. Now it's interesting because when I go in here now, you can't see any of the setup, which is a little disappointing to me. I can't see all the steps that we did. That's why I wanted to start new with you guys. So with this, now, like we already saw that debug where we can input all of our information. Let's do another inventory just for fun. So I'm just going to do another MacBook Pro. Let's do it for 2022. I don't know if any of this makes sense. And this one is much cheaper. So we're going to hit next. It's going to hit my assignment, assigning all of my variables to my input body. Here's my call, passing all the information, and then my output giving me back a different, I promise this one's different from before, unique ID because I created a new record in this external system. And now if we just go double check that in my URL, we're going to see my 2022 MacBook Pro.
Super cool. Super, super cool.
Thanks for sticking in there with me. That was kind of a lot. Powerful stuff for admins. I'm just going to pause. Any questions?
Yeah, there's a couple in the chat, and I think they all go together, so I'm going to paraphrase. So you don't have to write an Apex class specifically, B. What's happening is that and I was going to ask you, Jen, if you could go to Apex classes. When you build that component and you put in the sample call and response, I think it builds the Apex on the backhand side, like the framework, and I think it'll show up in your Apex list.
Oh, let's go see. I didn't look at that before. That's a good point. It's
you
in
don't
the
have to write the Apex.
Yeah, so you think it's in my class?
I mean, the way it was worded, I didn't look at this, but the way it was worded, it makes me think that it shows up in your class list because it's doing math for you. Nothing there though, huh?
Nothing. Well,
okay. I mean, that's okay because maybe they're protected, right? Like you don't want them to, like you don't want a developer to actually pick up an HTTP call out that's configured in a flow and break it. Oh, it's under dynamic classes, Stephanie says.
What is it under? I'm sorry.
Dynamic classes. So if you scroll down.
Oh, thank you.
There they all
are.
Oh,
yeah, here it is.
Yep. And so the nice thing about that is it looks like, if you open one of those, are they editable from here? Like maybe as the API changes, we can modify them?
Ooh, isn't that interesting? It opened up my external service. And I'd have to edit it from here. So it
opens it up as the component.
Yeah.
But it is showing you how the JSON, it's showing you basically what you plugged into it. So
oh my gosh, you guys, I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, this is cool. It's not writing it like an Apex HTTP call out. It's framed so that the flow builder can interact with it, but it's close.
Good point. Thank you for showing me that.
And then I'm curious, while you were doing your research and walking through, can you handle the response coming back? So
yeah, you could.
I mean, you can pick up that parameter and know if it failed.
Yeah, I think that you can.
Okay.
I just didn't have any of that information. I just didn't take it that far.
That's okay. I mean,
but then again, remember, you only can do a get in a post here. So like so I definitely could have had a screen, for example, that gave me back all of the response and said, hey, successful or whatever, or even redirected me somewhere else too. So
do you still have the response in the debug down at the bottom? You see the response code? Yeah. John, that's what I was getting at too. Like, I'm wondering if you can handle that and have that trigger something else, because the response is still a successful flow run. I don't think it errors.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Andy's jumping in here. He's got something. Do you want to add to it?
No, I mean, you asked a question like, could you do something with the response and handle an input or handle an exception? And the answer is yes, you could.
Yeah, you can just assign the response code as a parameter to a variable and have like the fault go somewhere.
Right.
Perfect.
You just start adding decision logic into your flow based off of the output.
Cool. Look at that. Admins acting like architects. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that there's so much more you could do. And I just wanted to demonstrate, a little bit on the kind of higher level of just how do you even create this thing? What does this even look like? So
I'll offer too the trails, in my opinion, the trails on API basics are really good. Like if you're, flying blind here, if you're watching Jen do this and being like, I don't get any of it, there's an API basics trail. There's a platform API basics trail. Really good way to kind of start thinking about what this means and what you might be able to do with it. It doesn't apply directly to what Jen just built, but it's the framework to help understand why you would. Highly recommend it.
Thanks. I have more to show you guys with Flow. So if we're ready to move on.
Please. I just want to do a time check. We're at 2. How are we booked? I don't even know.
We are booked. That's a great question. I think that we're technically booked till 2:30, maybe the invite said.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Which I'm totally killing and scraping into Squire's allotted time and Rachel's allotted time.
It's me just talking.
That took me a lot longer than I thought it would to show you guys the HTTP call out, but these other ones will be really quick too. So the first one is reactive screen components. Let's do this just because of interest of time. And then if we have more time, we can come back to it. So I created this in the spring release, this create opportunity. And there's a couple of things in here I want to show you because it's all working with all of the rest of the items in my demo. So let's do a new opportunity here. And this is just a regular pick list. I want to point out this is just a regular one. And then after that, I actually have what is known as the choice lookup. So you can see instead of it being a pick list, it's actually a lookup field. And I can even indicate in here, search for a stage. So this allows me to click in it to get the pick list, or if I was actually searching for something specific, I can do that as well. So that is that choice lookup. And then I'm going to do a close date. And then here I've got number of widgets and widgets unit price, and then this widget total as well. And if I start putting in data here, let's say I've got 5 widgets at the price of $100. I don't know if you saw that. Let's do it again. $50. $100 million. It's going to do my widget total by calculating. This is just a formula, taking my number of widgets times my price. So pretty cool there. That is part of the reactive screen in real time using formula, which is beta. I'm going to go ahead and go. This is our data table. I am looking for all of my contacts within Acme's account record. So I can see all of my contacts here, and I can search this list. So if I search John and hit enter, it will search and respond with John. Or if I remove that, and again, I have to hit enter in order for it to clear, so it's a little bit not intuitive, but I can get the full list back. So if I do another search, then I can just notice how it turned from a multi-select to a single select. That was pretty cool. So that search feature is new with the data table. I'm going to click next and I'm all done. But there's more happening within my flow. And what it did, and I'm just going to use my little cheat here on my opportunity itself. You can see that I have an email. This is part of my flow. So I built this with a Lightning email template. And then I had my flow with my email action component or element, write it back to the opportunity so I can see it on the opportunity. And if you notice, it is also writing it back to my actual contact record too. So if I go to my contact, you can see in my activity timeline here, my thank you email, which is that same email. So that actually hit the last of the things that I wanted to show you that Flow can now do. But relatively simple to set up if you're used to kind of working with Flow already. With that, I'm going to pause and not take any more of the time since we want to probably wrap up around 2:30-ish. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Any really questions? Quick. Yeah, about...
I do have a question before you lose your screen.
Yeah.
The reactive formulas, you didn't have to do anything special just by having it know it's variable driven, changing the variable in the screen updates the formula?
Yeah. Yeah. So really super simple. I mean, if we look at that on the back end, it's just, let's just go look because it's there. I just have my two items in my flow. So here's my opportunity, quick create. We can look at the screen quickly.
I just want to make sure like there's not a weird hidden assignment or anything. You've got a screen element and it does its work, right?
Yeah. So I've got my number of widgets, which is just a input of a number, my unit price of a number, and then my total, which is actually, I'm just calling it, or I just have my default value being a formula that's taking the number of widgets times the unit price. There's no other fanciness happening there. That's it. Yeah, which is really cool. And then the other thing too, I can point out is I did a get record to my Lightning template. So I just say it's an email template object. You have to get the developer name of your email template, throw that in there. And then this is the email action. And I'm just using my get for my template ID, setting this to true. Now my recipient, I hard coded it because I'm not actually getting the ID out of my flow. I didn't want to take that extra step, but I do have my ID in my flow for my opportunity. Just set those things and it just works. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now officially. Maybe.
Can that recipient be a user or does it have to be a contact or lead?
I believe that it can be a user. Double trust but verify. If I think that you can pull in user record information there as well. But again, I think even though that's not going outside the platform, I think because it's using a different like API call to log the email itself, that it might count against your limits. And in fact, I'd be interested to understand for you where that would be logging. Because if you're logging an email to a user, where exactly are you putting that email?
True. When I tried the send better email, it works if you're sending these emails out to contacts or leads. But when I wanted to do a send better email to a user, and I had the template made and I had all that, it wasn't working properly. And so that's where people told me I had to use a who ID, and that only goes to contact or lead, and it doesn't go to a user. And so I got stuck that way.
Yeah, Don't forget that an email is actually just an activity body. So you can have a who and a what, and the user is neither of those things. And so weird like paradigm shift there to say like, in this case, I have to do it in this way. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, it was a lot of time spent to realize that users don't count. So I was kind of hoping in this new format that users might count, because I don't want to hard code anything, and I'm trying to get away from that.
But can't you? Isn't there a formula field to be able to assign like actual users? I mean, because you're not actually sending it to a who or what, then you're just adding it to the address, right?
I've been creating a collection off of the user, but then I have to like do this little loop to get my user and their manager, and then maybe add in if I have somebody that like our general Salesforce email that needs to be copied on it. I have to add that in there, and it's obnoxious. Yeah. So I've been trying to see if I can get around that.
Yeah, that's definitely not the solution here, because this is just logging the email to a record for you to memorialize it. But what you're talking about, I mean, I'm doing the same thing in a couple different flows, where I'm looping through to get all of the users that I want to be CC'd in my email, and I'm basically doing the same thing you are. Is I'm creating a collection, I'm looping through it, I'm adding everybody to that collection, and then I add like a general inbox email address, which I'm actually storing in custom metadata type.
Yeah, I've got that as a label.
Yep.
But it's just some of our classic email templates, when I've been trying to migrate them into Flow, the previous admin did something, and I can't quite figure out what it was. But there are fields that were allowed in the recipients for that classic email alert that I can't get for some reason. So I've been trying to figure out how to do it properly, in the new way, and it's still, there's some magic behind the curtain, and I haven't figured that part out yet. So I was hoping this would be part of it.
Yeah, this isn't your answer. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
This is just sending and logging the email, not getting your collections and all your recipients and everything correct.
Okay.
If I'm understanding correctly. So
I think so, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. With that, I'm going to pass it to Rachel.
She had to drop for her.
She had to drop? Oh, yeah. No.
So, and with like basically 20 minutes, I think I'm just going to call it a couple high level things. And then,
please.
Maybe we can circle back on topics that are valuable to everybody. Maybe get a survey or something. And I apologize because I'm trying to hybridize two into one, but a couple quick call outs. The update to Lightning dashboards so that you can have more filters, add rich text and images is super cool. You should be using those to the best of your ability.
Rich text and images, though, are for unlimited edition only.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Be careful. Square's spoiled, and he has unlimited edition.
I do. I have 3 of them, so I'm super awesome. Not really at all. But the additional filters, I know personally we struggle with not having enough filter range on our dashboard. That's super helpful. Let's see here. The kind of a bug defect that's been fixed. The custom report types don't default to a hierarchy filtering system. They default to fully open like standards. Huge pain point, I think, for people who are writing these things constantly, that you had to remember what to do that. And if you didn't, you can figure out why they didn't work, and that can be painful. Let's see here. Scanning. I think there's some really cool things coming from Guidance Center and in-app guidance as far as improving how you can display information to your users and build better learning capabilities. The split view for Guidance Center, I think, is cool. If you've used Guidance Center, it kind of floats it above the top of your screen, and that's painful. You can activate now so that it sits and almost makes it look like a console a little bit, so you don't lose page space when you're using, or your users are using Guidance Center. That, I think that's really cool. And the in-app guidance change, you've got field level targeting now in in-app guidance. So if that's something that's valuable to your groups, definitely take that home. Maybe going to be a little bit invisible to the end users, but Calendar has been moved to a Lightning Web Component framework, which allows it to run better, display more value events, and just be a better experience for Calendar. And when you're
they moved where you can access. I mean, I think you can still access it from like the app launcher,
right.
But in the activity timeline, you can now click on an event, and there's a drop down with the calendar. It now allows you to open your calendar straight from the event icon in your activity timeline, which is kind of weird. I actually don't really like that, but because I don't want my users using their calendar.
Okay. I, on the other hand, was thinking that with public calendars being really the most value we get out of ours, it's so hard to sneak up on the calendar you care about being able to jump to it from the event gets you there so much faster. So
yeah, it depends on your use case for sure.
yeah, absolutely. A couple things that I think we saw coming. You can clone apps.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, is it? Tell me a little bit more. I mean, it feels like cloning an app seems really
oh my gosh
nuanced. No? Okay.
No, think about it. Like, so I spend all this time setting up a beautiful app, a new app with everything that I want it to have. I have my utility bar. I have the tabs I want on it. And then I want to basically have that app, but tweak it just slightly for like a different set of users. I don't have to start from scratch anymore. I can just clone and make some tweaks and I'm done. Okay, so
I gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I don't create new apps every day, but man, if I need to, that clone feature sure is nice.
Yeah, I think the legacy systems are you don't get to clone very often. So now I get it. I totally understand now. Horizontal alignment and dynamic forms. Speaking of building app, that's pretty cool. Now you have the ability to both align horizontally within a field section as well as align the forms themselves. There's a custom setting called align fields horizontally. That's not a setting, an attribute on the field section you have to hit to do that, but pretty cool. Gives you a little bit better balance. Let's see here. Skip the betas. Setting field level security on permission sets instead of profiles. That is now fully GA. If you're not planning to evaluate your permission set model, your profile model to start leaning toward permission sets, that's not being forced yet, but every time you see Cheryl online, she's talking about it. So start thinking about it, being able to manage all of your field settings the same way you do when you're creating it for a profile. Now doing that permission sets is really great. Those settings are in user management settings. And then once that's on, when you're creating objects, creating fields, et cetera, you can do all your field level security at the permission set level.
Is there any timeline for them yet for GA on that?
There's still no official roadmap that I know about. Andy sometimes knows things that we don't.
He knows nothing.
He might. I think similar to like the the workflow rule process builder flow kind of roadmap, I think you're better off starting to plan now than wait for the announcement, because it's going to be a bit of a scramble thing for most of us, but nothing yet. Let's see here. All right, here's one. I think it's an open beta, so it's really long view commentary, but I think it's super cool. User access policies. I highly recommend reading the post because I'm not going to give it enough justice in the time we've got. But, being able to effectively build, I'm going to call it automation to make sure that users have the right profiles, permission set groups, licenses, packages, like all the things you do in setup under the covers on a user record, building flows, not flows, but workflows that can assign those things automatically or systematically, or even allow delegation so that people can do it for themselves. That's really cool. Once it's not in open beta, we'll be able to do some demonstration of that. It's only available in Unlimited and Enterprise right now, but I have to assume it's also going to get bigger as it goes full. But again, as things transition to permission sets, you're going to have a lot more that admins have to know, either through tribal knowledge or documentation. And so if you can build any sort of automation to help with that, that conversion or that configuration, all the better. So user access policies. Let's see here.
I think with that user access policies too, I mean, I've seen like Jen Lee originally like blog about doing all of that within Flow, and now it's like you don't even have to do that. It makes it so much easier. Yeah, using Flow to assign and remove permission sets, stuff like that. Yeah.
I just built out one that it assigns permission sets by profiles, but then when a user gets deactivated, it blanket removes permission set and permission set licenses.
Wow.
Yeah. I hope you don't end up having to delete that, Anna, because I'm sure that wasn't hard or wasn't easy, excuse me. But yeah, this is really the direction that it's headed. So keep an eye on it, because it's in a good position for you then to continue and say, well, we did it this way, we can do it better this next way. Let's do that work. So. And then I think maybe with the last couple seconds of the meeting, I do want to call out all the cool stuff that's coming from Orchestrator. We don't get a chance to focus on it very much. And I know there's some licensing conversations as far as like how many you can run, but Flow Orchestrator really has a lot of power of being able to combine flows and approval workflows and activity in general into a more user-friendly experience to both manage when and how those things are happening. And so they're making lots of updates to that all the time. They've improved the building canvas. They've improved the way that let's see here, I'm trying to find my note right here. Here it is. There's a to-do search feature that's coming that's I think available only in high velocity in Essentials, but I can't imagine that not being something that goes live. The draft mode version of the canvas is really cool because you can test your flow in a better admin experience. Let's see, where's the other one here? Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place in my slide deck.
I think
the refresh. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yes, the refresh.
Yeah. So the big one with Orchestrator is the way the Orchestrator is designed to work is that you've got, think of it like having lots and lots of flows and subflows that are all triggered by steps within that process. And those steps aren't microsecond steps. They require someone to do something. So a couple of days go by when I have an activity complete. When I complete it, the flow prior to this release the orchestration didn't always know that data might have changed. Now with the most recent release, all the resources refresh on executions. So you're not going to have to worry about stale data in a long-term orchestration. So Jen, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I intentionally skipped with orchestration because I haven't had much time to play with it and understand it fully. And I know at one point we had Andy doing a tutorial on it, and I'm sure we have a recording there somewhere, but I'd love to get back into it sometime because I know that it could be powerful. I just don't have any real life use cases yet for me personally.
The thing that, I think they dropped, but I was going to throw Max under the bus because one of my teammates is working on a POC. There is a really good trail on it to help kind of understand how to tear it apart and build it out. But there's a lot of thought that goes into why you're building what you're building. You can't just decide it's going to be an orchestration today and get it right. You can get close, but the planfulness of what does my step look like? What does each piece of that look like? Where are the branching and what are the handoffs and rollbacks? All the stuff, really understanding what you're going to build before you build it is really important.
It sounds like John Graff's presentation at Midwest Dreamin', honestly. I know he left, but that's kind of what he said he was talking about was the documentation and building out the boxes before you actually open up your orchestration or your flow or your thing, whatever. Planning is important. Design documentation, I think, is important.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those things too where unless you're really connected with your business or with your client or with your customer, understanding how to do that well can really vet out the unknowns. And so you can hit the mark closer on the first iteration. So yeah, John's presentation should be great.
Yeah. There was that other thing too I wanted to call out too, and I think this is maybe what Rachel was going to talk about was configuring searchable objects, even though this is beta, but for each user profile. So you can actually give them search criteria to have them search or limit kind of what you want to be displayed when someone actually searches. And what they can't search, for example.
So the idea being like, instead of just searching every text field for the word Squire, I can say when you're searching for opportunities, you can only search in these fields. Is that what it's defined?
I think it's, well, it said searchable standard and custom objects. So maybe I want someone to be able to search accounts and contacts where I want someone else to be able to search accounts, contacts, and opportunities or cases, or, you know, and limiting just people's ability on what they can search, or driving what they can search to the surface faster. So I don't know. It sounds interesting. I didn't get a chance to play with it, and now I wish Rachel was here to tell us more.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to bring her back next time we get together and have her just throw that 10 minutes on.
Throw that on there. Yeah, for sure.
And then lastly, I just wanted to call for the more important release updates that you should be prepared for. So sharing for flow orchestration objects is an enforced release that's happening with this release. So if you're not using orchestrations, it doesn't apply. But if you are, you have to have access, or you can control the access to the objects that represent a flow orchestration. And so for canceling, debugging, reassigning any orchestrations you've got, there's a permission called manage orchestration runs and work items that has to be enabled for you to be able to manage those and see those objects in case you have those needs. So just want to call that out because it's going to be on this month. Restrict emails sent to an unverified email address as a guest user makes pretty much sense. You know, they're blocking any emails that are coming from an unverified email, but be prepared if you've got a community presence that you might have some email challenges, and just know that release change is happening. And then, of course, the deployment of the enhanced domains and the ongoing MFA auto enablement continues into this month. There's plenty of documentation. We've talked about both topics quite a bit, but and I hope that everyone on the call has made their conversions. But I believe MFA is slated to be done by winter for all orgs, and enhanced domains is done this month, I believe. So. Anyone have anything that we clearly missed that should be called out? If this is not just our show. Silence. I killed him.
No, I cannot say HTTP. I can barely say it once. Jeez. Awesome. Well, thanks, Squire, for running through those additional list items. Apologize for taking up more than my allotted time.
Yours was more interesting than mine, so it was perfect.
I had fun with it and learning it, and I'm interested to see where Salesforce is taking some of that and what more resources there will be for admins, because I learned a lot of different things in that process, and just really excited to be able to share with everyone here.
Do you think it'd be valuable to do a deep dive on not necessarily the flow HTTP call, but what the heck that all really means? Like, you know, we could talk about what post.
Did my one slide didn't do it for us?
I'm just curious. Like, it could be really mind numbing if you don't have interest, but like talking about things like what posts and gets really represent as far as like an API, and why you write an API, and why you would want to do it in Flow versus Apex, and like, and I'll even go as far as say like name credentials and connected apps, like all the security that goes around that stuff. Maybe that'd be really valuable. Maybe it would be really painful. I don't know. We got
Emily said that she would find that helpful.
Okay. 3, 4. Hey, that's enough.
Figure it out on my own. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so I mean, we can put that in our backlog, and if not us, I'm sure there's some really smart people both in our local community and the world.
Yeah, and you know, Emily, there's no better way to learn something than to teach it. So just throwing that out there, if that's something you'd be interested in. I got it. Yeah, we'll find some expertise to speak on that topic. All right. Well, with that, Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.